A political earthquake just rocked the prairies, and what happened overnight is sending shockwaves across the entire nation. Alberta has just dropped a bombshell referendum plan, and the fallout has Ottawa scrambling, the provinces divided, and Canadians everywhere asking, is this the beginning of the end for Confederation as we know it? In a stunning late-night announcement, Alberta's leadership looked straight into the cameras and delivered a message no one thought they'd ever hear. A plan so bold, so controversial, that it has Parliament Hill on high alert. What unfolded in the hours that followed will go down as one of the most explosive chapters in modern Canadian history. Make no mistake, this isn't just another political stunt. This is a province tired of being ignored, throwing down the gauntlet and daring Ottawa to respond. And the reactions? From jubilant cheers in Calgary and Red Deer to panic in downtown Toronto, Canada is erupting, overnight. Only minutes after Alberta's premier laid out the referendum plan, phones lit up across the country. Inside Ottawa, senior advisors were reportedly pulled out of late dinners and rushed to the Prime Minister's residence. By sunrise, insiders say cabinet members were already split, some urging the government to take a hard line against what they called a direct challenge to the Constitution, others warning that overreaction could turn Alberta's simmering anger into a full-blown rebellion. In Calgary's downtown core, hundreds gathered spontaneously outside the legislature annex, waving Alberta flags and homemade signs. One read, "Fair Deal or Free Alberta." Another, written on a grain truck door propped up against the sidewalk, declared, "We pump, you tax, we're done." The crowd wasn't just the usual political activists. There were ranchers still wearing mud-stained boots, oil field workers in coveralls, and families with small children perched on shoulders. They weren't chanting about small policy tweaks, they were demanding a historic shift in Canada's future. Reporters on the ground described a mood that was equal parts exhilaration and trepidation. A local farmer told Voice of Canada, "We've been ignored for years. They take our money, kill our pipelines, and lecture us about the environment from condos in Toronto. If this referendum is what it takes, so be it." But only a block away, a young university student worried aloud, "This feels dangerous. Alberta leaving Canada? That's not just politics. That's our identity breaking apart." By mid-morning, headlines from Vancouver to St. John's blared with alarm. Alberta throws down the gauntlet. Ottawa faces Western revolt. Unity crisis deepens overnight. Stock analysts even speculated on the impact to Canadian markets, warning that uncertainty over federal energy revenues could ripple through banks and pension funds. Oil futures ticked upward on rumors that Alberta might seek direct trade deals with American refiners if Ottawa pushed back too hard. The Prime Minister stepped to a podium outside Parliament and, under the bright lights of a hastily assembled press conference, called Alberta's referendum plan reckless, unconstitutional, and a betrayal of Canadian unity. His words, delivered firmly but with visible tension in his jawline, only seemed to inflame the debate. Almost immediately, opposition leaders seized on the moment. One Conservative MP from rural Saskatchewan declared, "Instead of listening to the West, this government has bullied and taxed it. Now they're shocked Alberta's had enough? This is on Ottawa." Meanwhile, whispers began leaking from Washington. According to unnamed diplomatic sources, U.S. trade officials were monitoring the situation closely and privately acknowledged that Alberta represents a significant piece of North America's energy puzzle. While no one in the White House would comment on record, energy lobbyists in Texas openly speculated that an Alberta free to negotiate its own deals could be a game-changer for North American oil security. That alone added pressure to Ottawa's already strained position. Back in Edmonton, Premier Danielle Smith doubled down. Flanked by her ministers, she outlined the stakes in stark terms. "For decades, we have contributed more than our fair share to this federation. Our workers, our families, and our industries have been punished for their success. Tonight, Alberta stands up, not just for ourselves, but for every province that believes in fairness." Her speech wasn't fiery rhetoric alone. She unveiled a timeline for a province-wide referendum within 6 months, a legal team tasked with drafting potential constitutional pathways, and a new Alberta Sovereignty Fund to begin preparing for fiscal autonomy should negotiations fail. As darkness fell, Canada's political landscape felt changed forever. Analysts on late-night broadcasts compared the moment to Quebec's independence referendums of 1980 and 1995, but noted key differences. Alberta's grievances were rooted not in language or culture, but in economics, pipelines, and energy policy. That difference, they warned, could make the movement even harder to diffuse, because dollars and livelihoods cut across partisan and cultural lines. In smaller prairie towns, coffee shops buzzed with speculation. Truckers discussed border logistics. Would crossing into Montana or North Dakota change overnight? Ranchers wondered about beef export permits. School teachers debated whether this was a bargaining tactic or the first real step toward Alberta exiting Confederation. On social media, hashtags like hashtag Free Alberta, hashtag Referendum 2025, and hashtag Canada Crisis trended across the country within hours. Ottawa's next move will be critical. Government insiders hinted at emergency negotiations with Alberta's leadership, while some legal scholars argued that federal threats of financial retaliation could backfire spectacularly. One constitutional expert told CBC, "The Supreme Court has been clear since the Quebec reference in 1998. Ottawa can't simply dismiss a clear provincial referendum result. They must negotiate in good faith." Alberta's leaders know that precedent. By the following morning, Saskatchewan's premier issued a carefully worded statement praising Alberta for starting a necessary conversation about the fairness of Confederation. British Columbia's government, wary of energy disputes spilling over, urged calm but reminded Ottawa that Western provinces deserve respect. Even in Ontario, a handful of backbench MPs broke ranks, warning their party not to underestimate Western frustration. International reactions were just as swift. European newspapers framed the story as a sign of growing instability in Western democracies. Energy traders in London speculated on long-term supply shifts. In Beijing, state-controlled media used the story to argue that even stable countries like Canada are facing internal fractures. And yet, amid all the noise, ordinary Albertans went to work the next day, driving trucks, tending cattle, staffing hospitals. For them, this wasn't a political game. It was about fairness, livelihoods, and the belief that their contribution to Canada deserves respect. Many said they'd prefer a strong, united Canada, but only if that Canada treats Alberta as an equal partner, not a piggy bank. As tensions rise, all eyes are now on Ottawa's response in the coming days. Will the federal government choose confrontation or compromise? Will they risk fueling separatist sentiment by doubling down? Or will they offer real concessions to ease the West's anger? For now, the country waits, holding its breath as the prairies rumble with defiance. Before we sign off tonight, let me speak directly to you, the Canadians watching from every corner of this great country. What you've just witnessed isn't just another headline that will fade away tomorrow. This is history unfolding in real time. Alberta's referendum bombshell has cracked open questions about fairness, autonomy, and the very fabric of our confederation. Whether you agree with Alberta's leaders or not, you can feel the ground shifting beneath our feet. The conversations happening right now around kitchen tables in Red Deer, on ferries crossing to Vancouver Island, in apartment towers overlooking Toronto, will shape Canada's future for decades to come. That's why here, we are committed to bringing you every development as it happens. The late-night cabinet meetings in Ottawa, the quiet negotiations behind closed doors in Edmonton, the voices of everyday Canadians caught in the middle of this national reckoning. We'll dig deeper than the headlines, cut through the spin, and give you the context the big networks often ignore. Because understanding this story isn't just about Alberta. It's about what kind of country we want Canada to be. So if you want to stay ahead of the curve, to hear every update, every twist, and every moment of this unfolding drama, make sure you subscribe right now to Wexit Watch. Hit that bell icon so you don't miss a single alert, and share this video with your friends, your family, your coworkers, anyone who needs to understand what's at stake. This is your front row seat to history. And together, we'll watch as Canada's next chapter is written. Stay tuned because this story is far from over.